"Our father died by your order," the girls told the millionaire, but moments later, a miracle happens. Comment what you thought of this story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and tell me which city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better, so please subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The ballroom of the majestic Crest Hotel shimmered under imported crystal chandeliers when three dirty figures burst through the main door, their voices echoing like a war cry that silenced the string orchestra. Arthur Vanderbilt, 50, froze with a glass of French champagne suspended in midair, his blue eyes scanning the ragged children who had invaded his birthday party. "You killed our father," shouted Delilah, 12, pointing a small but firm finger at the businessman. Her black hair was tangled and caked with dirt, her torn dress revealing bruised knees. "Because of you, he's not here anymore." The 200 guests, all members of Aspen's elite, recoiled in shock. Women in designer dresses brought hands to their chests, and men in tuxedos whispered among themselves. The scent of white roses that decorated the room was replaced by the smell of poverty emanating from the three girls. Megan, 8, held tightly to her younger sister's hand as tears streamed down her thin face. "He fired Daddy from the construction site, and now Daddy is gone forever," she sobbed, her trembling voice cutting through the awkward silence. But it was when Arthur looked at the smallest one that something inside him broke. Lily, just 4 years old, stood behind her sisters, her enormous green eyes fixed on him with a disturbing intensity. Those eyes. They were identical to Evelyn's, his late wife. "Mr. Vanderbilt, should we call security?" whispered his assistant Marcus, approaching discreetly. Arthur shook his head slowly, unable to look away from Lily. The girl wore a faded yellow dress, riddled with holes, and her feet were bare and dirty. But there was something in the way she watched him, an inexplicable familiarity that made his heart race. "Let them stay," he murmured, ignoring the scandalized whispers of the guests. Beatrice Vanderbilt, his 45-year-old sister-in-law, appeared at his side like a storm in black silk. Her blonde hair was pulled into a flawless bun, and her icy blue eyes reflected restrained fury. "Arthur, have you lost your mind?" she hissed through her teeth. "These street children can't stay here. You're making a fool of yourself." "Our father's name was Owen Smith," Delilah continued, ignoring the hostile glares. "He worked on the construction of the new mall. You said he was a thief, but he never stole anything in his life." Arthur frowned. The name Owen Smith sounded vaguely familiar, but so many workers had passed through his construction sites over the years. As the head of Vanderbilt Construction, one of the largest in Colorado, he dealt with hundreds of employees. "Daddy cried every night after you fired him," Megan added, wiping her nose on the sleeve of her tattered dress. "He couldn't find another job because you told everyone he was a thief." "This is ridiculous," Beatrice intervened, stepping forward. "Arthur would never slander someone without reason. If this man was fired, there was surely a good reason." Lily let go of Megan's hand and took a few hesitant steps toward Arthur. Her green eyes never left his, and when she stopped right in front of him, she held out her small, dirty hand. "You have sad eyes, just like my mommy did," she said in the sweet, clear voice of a child. "She went to heaven just like Daddy." Arthur felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. That voice, those eyes, even the way she tilted her head slightly. Everything about her was a painful reminder of Evelyn. "Where are you living now?" he asked, crouching down to be at Lily's level. "In the Dry Creek shanty town," Delilah replied with wounded pride. "Alone, because we don't have anyone else. But we don't need your pity." Beatrice gripped Arthur's arm tightly. "You can't be thinking what I think you're thinking," she muttered, her voice laced with warning, but Arthur was lost in those green eyes. Since Evelyn passed away 2 years ago from a swift and aggressive cancer, he had become a bitter and lonely man. He dedicated himself only to business, avoiding any form of emotional connection. But something about the presence of these girls, especially Lily, awakened a part of him he thought was permanently dormant. "You can't keep living alone," he said, ignoring Beatrice's whispered protests. "It's dangerous for children." "We manage just fine," Delilah retorted, lifting her chin defiantly. "We don't want anything from you. We just wanted you to know that you destroyed our family." Arthur looked around the ballroom. The guests watched the scene with a mixture of morbid curiosity and embarrassment. He knew that by the next day, all of Aspen would be gossiping about the incident at his party. But strangely, he didn't care. "What if I said you could stay at my house until we sort this out?" he offered, surprising himself with his own words. Beatrice turned pale. "Arthur, we need to talk. Now." "We don't want your charity," Delilah said, but her voice trembled slightly. "We came here to tell the truth, not to ask for help." "And what if it's not charity?" Arthur insisted. "What if it's justice?" Lily held out her little hand to him again. "Will you find out who made Daddy cry?" Arthur took the small, dirty hand in his. It was warm and trembled slightly, and again he had the strange feeling of having held that hand before. "I will find out the truth about your father," he promised, feeling the weight of that pledge. "But you have to accept my help. 3 little girls alone in a shanty town. That's not right." Delilah looked at her sisters, then at the luxury around her, then back at Arthur. There was suspicion in her eyes, but also exhaustion. The exhaustion of a child forced to grow up too fast. "Only until we find out the truth about Daddy," she said finally. "Then we'll leave." Beatrice grabbed Arthur's arm more forcefully. "Can we speak in private? Now?" But Arthur had already made up his mind. For the first time in 2 years, he felt he had a purpose beyond accumulating wealth. He looked at Lily, who was smiling shyly at him, and knew his life had irreversibly changed in that moment. "Marcus," he called to his assistant, "get the car ready. We're taking the girls home." The guests' murmurs intensified, but Arthur heard nothing more. His attention was completely focused on the 3 children who had appeared like ghosts from a past he didn't even know existed, especially on Lily, whose green eyes held secrets he couldn't yet decipher. Arthur Vanderbilt's mansion stood majestically on the slopes of Aspen Mountain, its French windows reflecting the city lights spreading across the valley below. During the silent 20-minute drive, the 3 girls remained huddled together in the back of the black Mercedes, seeing for the first time a reality that had, until then, existed only in distant dreams. Lily pressed her nose against the bulletproof glass, her green eyes wide at the impeccably manicured gardens lining the automatic gate. "It's like a castle," she murmured, causing Delilah to squeeze her hand tighter. "Remember, it's only temporary," the older sister whispered, but her own voice betrayed a restrained admiration for the chandeliers they could already see through the mansion's lit windows. Beatrice had followed in her own car, a red Audi that now parked with excessive force in the garage. Her heels echoed on the Italian marble of the entrance as she caught up with the group, her face twisted into a mask of contained fury. "Arthur, I need to speak with you immediately," she declared, completely ignoring the girls. "This is complete madness." "Later, Beatrice," he replied, guiding the children into the house. "Right now they need a bath and food." The interior of the mansion left the girls speechless. The entrance hall had a double-height ceiling with a curved marble staircase leading to the second floor. Paintings by famous artists adorned the walls, and a grand piano gleamed under the light of the central chandelier. Megan spun around slowly, taking in every detail. "Daddy once said that rich people lived like kings," she murmured to Delilah. "I think he was right. But it was Lily who caused the biggest stir." The 4-year-old let go of her sister's hands and walked directly to a side table where a silver-framed photo showed a blonde woman with green eyes smiling radiantly. "She's pretty," Lily said, touching the glass of the frame with her little finger. "She looks like an angel." Arthur felt the air leave his lungs. It was a photo of Evelyn, taken during their honeymoon in Paris, 3 years before the diagnosis that would change everything. But how had Lily gone directly to that specific photo, ignoring all the other valuable pieces around? "How did you—" he began, but was interrupted by Beatrice. "Coincidence," she said sharply, taking the photo from the girl's hands. "Children are always interested in pictures. It means nothing." Delilah watched the interaction carefully, her instincts sharpened by a hard life picking up on the unspoken tensions between the adults. There were secrets in this house. She could feel it. "I'll show you to your rooms," Arthur announced, starting up the stairs. "Beatrice manages my businesses and has lived here with me since I was left alone." The girls followed him down the second-floor hallway, their dirty footprints marking the Persian rug that was worth more than everything they had ever owned. Arthur opened the door to a large room with 2 twin beds and a cozy armchair near the window. "Delilah and Megan can sleep here," he said, "and Lily." He stopped in front of another door, one that had remained closed for 2 years. It was the former guest room that Evelyn had turned into a painting studio. After her passing, he hadn't been able to enter it even once. "Lily can stay in the pink room at the end of the hall," Beatrice intervened quickly. "It's more appropriate for a small child." But Lily had already approached the closed door, her small hands touching the wood as if recognizing something familiar. "It smells like paint in here," she said, inhaling deeply, "just like my mommy when she painted colorful little rocks for us." Arthur looked at her with growing unease. Evelyn did indeed paint. It was her secret passion, something very few people knew. How could a 4-year-old, the daughter of a construction worker, make that connection? "Your mother painted?" he asked, crouching down again. "Yes, she did," Lily replied with a melancholic smile. "She said the colors made her remember beautiful things when she was sad, but she stopped after Daddy got very angry." Delilah pulled her younger sister away from the door. "Lily shouldn't talk about Mommy," she said quickly. "It confuses her." Arthur noticed the tension in Delilah's voice, as if she were hiding something. But before he could investigate further, Beatrice clapped her hands impatiently. "Enough talk. These girls need a bath urgently," she declared. "And then we're going to have a serious conversation, Arthur." An hour later, the 3 girls were clean and wearing pajamas that the housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, had managed to borrow from the gardener's daughters. They sat around the mahogany dining room table, their eyes wide at the amount of food Mrs. Gable had quickly prepared. "I've never seen so much food at once," Megan whispered, looking at the platters of lasagna, salad, French bread and fruit that covered the table. Arthur watched them eat with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Delilah ate methodically, always checking that her sisters were well served before worrying about her own hunger. Megan devoured everything with the desperate appetite of someone who didn't know when her next meal would be. But Lily nibbled delicately, chewing slowly, as if she had been taught table manners. "Lily, you can eat more," he encouraged. "There's plenty for everyone." "My mommy said food is a gift from God and you can't waste it," she replied, carefully wiping her mouth on the napkin. "And that pretty girls eat slowly so they don't get a big tummy." Again, that strange, refined upbringing in a child who lived in a shanty town. Arthur exchanged glances with Beatrice, who was watching Lily with an unreadable expression. After dinner, when the girls had gone to bed, Beatrice finally got the conversation she wanted. They sat in the library, surrounded by leather-bound volumes and the aroma of French cognac that Arthur served in crystal glasses. "You've gone completely mad," she began without preamble. "3 street children in our house? Arthur, think of your reputation, your business." "It's temporary," he replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Until we find out what really happened to their father." "And you believe these absurd accusations? That you fired someone unjustly?" Beatrice stood up and began pacing the room. "You are a fair man. If you fired this Owen, there were certainly reasons." "Perhaps," Arthur murmured, but the image of Lily's eyes wouldn't leave his mind. "But I'm going to investigate anyway. I need to be sure." Beatrice stopped in front of him, her face tense. "Arthur, you can't replace Evelyn with these children. I know you're still grieving her loss, but this is not the solution." "It's not about replacing anyone," he answered, but he knew she had touched a raw nerve. "It's about doing what's right. And what if you find out there really was a mistake? Will you adopt them? Will you completely change your life for 3 strangers who appeared out of nowhere?" Arthur didn't answer immediately. Upstairs, he could hear the girls' low voices talking before bed. Lily was humming a tune that made his heart race. It was the same song Evelyn used to hum when she cooked. How does she know that song? He asked himself. What song? Beatrice wanted to know. The one Evelyn always sang. Lily is humming the exact same tune. Beatrice turned pale for a moment, then forced a laugh. Coincidence. It's a popular song, Arthur. Any child could know it. But Arthur wasn't convinced. There were too many coincidences. The green eyes identical to Evelyn's, the immediate interest in his wife's photo, the knowledge about painting, the refined table manners, and now the song. It was as if Lily carried pieces of his late wife's soul. That night, after Beatrice retired to her room, Arthur quietly went upstairs. He stopped in front of the door, to the room where Delilah and Megan were sleeping, then walked to the pink room where Lily had been settled. The door was slightly ajar, and he could see the girl's small silhouette in bed. She slept peacefully, one hand closed over her heart, exactly how Evelyn used to sleep. Arthur closed his eyes, feeling a whirlwind of emotions he hadn't experienced in 2 years. For the first time since losing his wife, he felt he had a family again. But something in the back of his mind whispered that there was much more to this situation than it seemed. In the next room, Delilah lay awake, listening to Arthur's footsteps in the hall. Her suspicions about this wealthy family intensified with each passing hour. There were secrets in this house, and she would do anything to protect her sisters from the truth she sensed was hidden in the shadows of those luxurious corridors. The next morning brought a light rain that fogged the mansion's windows, creating a melancholic atmosphere that mirrored Arthur's state of mind. He had spent the night awake, tormented by unanswered questions, and decided it was time to investigate the girls' claims about their father. At the construction company's office, located in downtown Aspen, Arthur sifted through old files with a determination that surprised his employees. He hadn't shown such personal interest in operational matters for years, delegating everything to Beatrice and his managers. "I found it, Mr. Vanderbilt," said Carla, his secretary, placing a thick folder on the mahogany desk. "Owen Smith, specialized worker, worked with us for 8 months on the South Creek Mall project." Arthur opened the folder with hands that trembled slightly. The photo on the document hit him like a punch. Owen was a man of about 35, with dark hair, kind eyes, and a shy smile. But it was when he read the dismissal report that Arthur's stomach churned. Fired for just cause, theft of construction material. Reporter, Anthony Ferreira, Tony, site manager. The handwriting was Tony's, his trusted manager for over 15 years. The man who had helped build the Vanderbilt construction empire from its earliest days. "Carla, Where can I find Tony today? Arthur asked, closing the folder. At the Blue Lake residential project site, sir, but may I ask why the interest in this specific case? Arthur didn't answer. He grabbed his car keys and drove to the site, a 20-minute drive from the center. During the drive, Delilah's words echoed in his mind. He never stole anything in his life. The residential project site was bustling with activity even in the rain. Arthur found Tony supervising the loading of a cement truck, his 48 years weighing on his stooped shoulders and sun-weathered face. "Mr. Vanderbilt, what a surprise to see you here," Tony said, wiping his dirty hands on his coveralls. "Did something happen? I need to talk to you about a former employee, Owen Smith." And Tony's face hardened almost imperceptibly, but Arthur, with his business experience, noticed the change. "Owen Smith. Let me think. Oh yes, the one who was caught stealing material." "Are you sure he was stealing?" Arthur asked, carefully studying the manager's expression. "Of course I am. I caught him leaving with bags of cement in the trunk of his car. I even called Joe as a witness, remember him?" Arthur nodded. Joe was another long-time employee, retired for 3 years. "And you are absolutely sure of what you saw?" The insistence in the question made Tony visibly nervous. He looked around, checking if anyone was listening. "Why the question, Mr. Vanderbilt? Did something happen to Owen?" "He passed away. Heart attack. Left 3 orphan daughters." Tony lowered his head, but Arthur noticed he didn't seem genuinely surprised by the news. "That's a shame. But, well, he shouldn't have stolen. His daughters showed up at my birthday party yesterday. They say you lied about the theft." The silence that followed was tense. Tony shuffled his feet on the muddy ground, avoiding Arthur's penetrating gaze. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, lower. "Mr. Vanderbilt, you've trusted me for 15 years. Why would you believe 3 street kids instead of me?" "Because," Arthur said slowly, "one of them is 4 years old and looks at me with the same eyes as my late wife, and because you're lying to me right now." Tony turned pale. "What do you mean, lying? You said you called Joe as a witness. But Joe told me last year that he never witnessed any theft during his time working for me. He said it was one of the things he was most proud of in our company." The tension in the air was palpable. Tony looked around again, as if searching for an escape route. "Mr. Vanderbilt, maybe I got confused about Joe. Tony, you're like a brother to me. You helped build this company. That's why I'm giving you one chance to tell me the truth. What really happened with Owen Smith?" The manager remained silent for long minutes, the rain dripping from his yellow hard hat. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. "Mr. Vanderbilt, I was having financial problems at the time. My wife needed expensive surgery, and I was diverting material from the site to sell and get the money." Arthur felt as if he'd been slapped. "You were stealing? It was just temporary. I was going to replace everything as soon as I got the money. But then Owen started getting suspicious. He saw me loading the cement bags into my car one night." "And you blamed him for your crime," Arthur concluded, his voice filled with disappointment and anger. Tony nodded miserably. "I panicked. I thought if I accused him first, no one would investigate further. Owen tried to defend himself, said he would prove his innocence, but Mr. Vanderbilt, you trusted me so much you didn't even question my report." The revelation hit Arthur like an avalanche. Because of his blind trust in Tony, he had destroyed an innocent man's life, a man who, according to his daughters, never managed to recover from the injustice. "Do you know that Owen spent months unemployed because I spread the word that he was a thief?" Arthur asked, his voice dangerously low. "I know, and I regret it every day. But Mr. Vanderbilt, my wife—" "Your wife is alive. Owen isn't." Tony began to cry, his tears mixing with the rain. What are you going to do to me? Arthur looked at the man he considered almost family, feeling a mixture of anger, disappointment, and sadness. You're fired, and you're going to help me find a way to repair the harm we've done to the Smith family. Back at the mansion, Arthur found the three girls in the living room wearing clothes Mrs. Gable had bought that morning. Delilah was reading a book to her younger sisters, but stopped when she saw him enter. "Did you find out anything about Daddy?" she asked, her hopeful eyes mixed with suspicion. Arthur sat in an armchair in front of them, choosing his words carefully. "Your father was innocent. He never stole anything. The one who stole was my manager, and he blamed your father to protect himself." The silence that followed was devastating. Delilah closed the book slowly, her eyes filling with angry tears. "So Daddy suffered all those months for nothing," she said, her voice trembling. "He cried every day, said no one believed him, that he had lost his honor." "Daddy got sick from sadness," Megan added, starting to sob. "He said you had taken the only thing he had, his honest work." Arthur felt the weight of guilt crush him. For the first time in years, tears began to roll down his face. "I am so sorry, so very sorry. I know I can't bring your father back, but I will do everything to right this injustice." Lily got up from the armchair where she was sitting and walked over to him. With her small hands, she wiped the tears from Arthur's face. "Don't cry, Uncle," she said sweetly. "Daddy said that good people sometimes do bad things without knowing. The important thing is when they find out and get truly sad about it." The 4-year-old's simplicity and kindness broke Arthur's heart. How could a child who had lost so much still offer comfort? At that moment, Beatrice entered the room, returning from a business meeting. She stopped when she saw the scene. Arthur crying, the girls around him, and an atmosphere heavy with emotion. "What is going on here?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I found out the girls were right," Arthur replied, wiping his face. "Their father was innocent. Tony confessed everything." Beatrice's face showed no surprise, only controlled irritation. "And now what? Are you going to flagellate yourself forever over a mistake from the past?" "It wasn't just a mistake, Beatrice. It was a terrible injustice that caused the death of an innocent man. And keeping 3 children is going to bring him back to life?" she retorted. "Arthur, you need to be practical. Donate money to them, put them in a good school, but don't destroy your life over exaggerated guilt." Delilah stood up, facing Beatrice with a courage that surprised everyone. "You don't like us, do you?" "It's not a matter of liking or not liking," Beatrice replied coldly. "It's a matter of being realistic. You don't belong in this world." "Beatrice," Arthur scolded, shocked by the harshness of her words. But Lily surprised everyone again. Staring intently at Beatrice, she said with a clarity disturbing for her age, "You're afraid of us, but I don't know why." Beatrice was visibly shaken by the 4-year-old's observation. For a moment her defenses crumbled and something like panic flashed in her eyes. "How absurd," she said, but her voice didn't sound convincing. "I'm not afraid of children." "Lily always knows when someone is lying," Delilah said, watching Beatrice's reaction with interest. "It's a gift she has." Arthur looked from Beatrice to Lily, feeling there were undercurrents of tension he didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. His decision to help the girls had triggered something bigger than he had imagined, and now there was no turning back. 3 months had passed since the girls arrived at the mansion, and Arthur's life had completely transformed. He had started the legal process to gain permanent custody of the 3 sisters, facing resistance from Judge Franklin Monroe, a 58-year-old man who openly questioned the ability of a wealthy bachelor to raise 3 poor children. "Mr. Vanderbilt, what guarantees that this isn't just a phase of guilt that will soon pass?" the judge had asked during the last hearing, his words echoing cruelly in Arthur's mind. Beatrice had intensified her campaign against the girl's continued stay, discreetly hiring Marlene Shaw, a 45-year-old social worker known for her efficiency in resolving complicated cases. Marlene arrived at the mansion on a Tuesday morning, carrying a folder of documents and a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Vanderbilt, I need to assess the children's living conditions," she announced, completely ignoring the girl's presence in the living room. "It's standard procedure." Arthur immediately noticed the social worker's thinly veiled hostility. During the visit, she asked biased questions and made notes that clearly sought to find flaws in the family arrangement. "And where is the maternal figure in this arrangement?" Marlene asked, watching Lily draw birds on a sheet of paper. "Mrs. Gable helps a lot with the girls," Arthur replied, "and they seem happy and well-adjusted." "Traumatized children often mask their true feelings," Marlene retorted coldly. "It would be better for them to be with a traditional, structured family." Delilah, who watched everything with her precocious intelligence, sensed the threat. That night, when everyone was asleep, she quietly woke her sisters. "We have to get out of here," she whispered, her hands trembling as she quickly packed some clothes into a bag. "That woman wants to take us away from Uncle Arthur." "Where are we going?" Megan asked, scared. "To the cemetery. I want to be close to Daddy." The three girls escaped from the mansion through the back door, walking through the deserted streets of Aspen in the cold dawn. The cemetery was a 2-hour walk away, and when they arrived, they were exhausted and shivering from the cold. They found Owen Smith's simple grave, marked only by a wooden cross with his name carved by hand. Delilah lay on the damp earth, hugging her sisters. "Daddy, we don't know what to do anymore," she cried. "Uncle Arthur is good, but some people want to separate us. If we have to go to an orphanage, at least we want to be here with you first." That was how Arthur found them 3 days later. After a desperate search that involved the entire town, the girls were sleeping, huddled together on the grave, protecting themselves from the cold with dry leaves and old newspapers. "My God," he murmured, kneeling beside them. "Why did you run away?" Delilah opened her eyes, red from crying. "Because we don't want to be separated. If we can't stay with you, we'd rather stay with Daddy." The scene broke Arthur's heart. He carried the three girls back home, more determined than ever to fight for them. But it was that night that Beatrice played her final card. "Arthur, you can't continue with this fantasy," she said, entering his office without knocking. "Marlene got a court order. The girls will be transferred to a foster family tomorrow." "What do you mean? What foster family?" "A structured family in Denver, married parents, financially stable, experienced with adoptions." Arthur stood up abruptly. "You did this behind my back?" "I did it for your own good, and for the good of the children too." "Beatrice, they almost froze to death in the cemetery because they're afraid of being separated." "Exactly. That proves they're too traumatized for a normal transition. They need professional help." At that moment, Lily appeared at the office door, wearing her pink pajamas. Her green eyes were filled with tears. "Uncle Arthur, is it true they're going to take us away?" Arthur knelt before her, holding her small hands. "I won't let that happen, Princess. I promise." But Lily looked intently at Beatrice, and what she said next changed everything. "Why do you have a picture of my mommy hidden in your room?" Beatrice turned completely pale. "What picture? What are you talking about?" "When I got lost looking for the bathroom, I accidentally went into your room. I saw a little box under the bed with pictures of my mommy and a blonde lady who looked like her." Arthur looked at Beatrice with growing suspicion. "What is this about, Beatrice?" The girl is confused, making things up. But Lily continued with the frightening determination of a child who knew more than she let on. "In the pictures, my mommy was pregnant with me, and there was a blonde lady holding her hand. They looked like sisters." Arthur felt the world spin around him. Beatrice, did you know the girl's mother? The silence that followed was deafening. Beatrice looked from Arthur to Lily, her defenses finally crumbling. Claire was my younger sister, she finally murmured. Adoptive sister. My parents adopted her when she was 5. The revelation hit Arthur like a lightning bolt. Your sister? And you never told me? Because Claire embarrassed me. She got pregnant by Owen when she was just 17, dropped out of school, lived in poverty. I tried to help, but she was too proud to accept it. But the pictures Lily saw... Beatrice closed her eyes, defeated. When Claire found out she was sick, she came to me. She wanted me to take care of the girls if something happened to her. I said I couldn't, that I had my own life to lead. You abandoned your own sister. She chose that life. She married a worker, lived in a shanty town, had 3 daughters she couldn't properly support. I built an empire alongside Evelyn and you. I wasn't going to throw it all away because of her wrong choices. Lily let go of Arthur's hands and walked over to Beatrice. Mommy used to talk about a rich sister who didn't like her. Was that you? Tears began to roll down Beatrice's normally controlled face. I did like her, but I couldn't. Mommy said you promised to take care of us if something happened to her and Daddy. Why didn't you keep your promise? The innocent question from the 4-year-old completely shattered Beatrice's defenses. She knelt before Lily, sobbing, because I was scared that you would change everything, scared of losing control of my life, scared of loving you and then losing you too. Arthur watched the scene in shock. Beatrice, you're their biological aunt. How could you try to send them away? Because when I look at them, especially Lily, I see Claire. I see all the opportunities she wasted, all the fights we had, all the regret I carry. Lily reached out her small hands to wipe away Beatrice's tears. Mommy isn't here anymore, but we are, and we don't want to leave. At that moment, Delilah and Megan appeared at the door, drawn by the sound of crying. When they saw Beatrice crying, their expressions of distrust softened. Are you our real aunt? Delilah asked. Beatrice nodded, unable to speak. Mommy always said she had a sister she loved very much, but they had grown apart, Megan said softly. She said she hoped one day we would meet our aunt. The transformation in Beatrice was visible. For the first time since the girls arrived, she looked at them not as intruders, but as family. I'm so sorry, she whispered. So very sorry. When Claire passed, I should have looked for you, but I didn't know how to be an aunt. I didn't know how to love without being afraid of loss. Arthur came closer, placing a hand on Beatrice's shoulder. It's not too late. They're here now. Lily climbed into Beatrice's lap, snuggling against her with the naturalness of a child who had finally found what she was looking for. Can you be our aunt from the heart now? Beatrice hugged her as if she were hugging her own deceased sister. Yes, my little one. Forever. The next day, Beatrice called Marlene to cancel the girls' transfer. She used all her influence to ensure Arthur's adoption process was expedited and approved. 6 months later, in a simple but emotional ceremony, Arthur Vanderbilt officially adopted Delilah, Megan, and Lily Smith. Beatrice stood by his side as godmother, finally at peace with her role as an aunt. Dad would be proud, Delilah said during the celebration party, looking at a photo of Owen that now held a place of honor in the living room. Lily, now 5, ran up to Arthur and Beatrice. Now I have a dad from the heart and a real aunt. Arthur lifted her into his arms, looking at the family he had gained in the most unexpected way. It had started with guilt and regret, but it had transformed into genuine love. And you have a home forever, he promised, knowing he had finally found the peace he had been seeking since losing Evelyn. Beatrice smiled, holding Delilah and Megan's hands. For the first time in years, she felt complete. She had honored her sister's memory in the only way that mattered, by loving her daughters as if they were her own. That night, as he tucked the girls into bed, Arthur stopped in front of the room that had once belonged to Evelyn. The walls were now covered with colorful bird drawings by Lily, and there was a small piano in the corner where all three were learning to play. "I think Evelyn would approve," he murmured to himself, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. From the room, Lily's sweet voice echoed, "Good night, Daddy from the heart. Good night, Aunt Beatrice. Good night, Daddy in heaven." And for the first time since he lost his wife, Arthur Vanderbilt slept, knowing that his house was full of life, love, and family again. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and thank you so much